This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you by Bitrefill. Bitrefill is the best way to spend your crypto in Latin America. Purchase gift cards or mobile refills from more than 3,500 brands in 186 countries instantly, safely, and privately. Visit bitrefill.com for more information. Welcome back to the My Latin Life podcast. Since 2014, My Latin Life has been your trusted guide to traveling and living in Latin America. My guest today is Dan from the YouTube channel Vagabond Awake and website Vagabond Buddha. Dan, how's it going?
It's great, Vance. It's nice to chat with you.
Absolutely. Dan, I got to tell you, you were one of the earliest podcast recommendations we had where people were requesting you as a guest probably like a year ago. And I remember reaching out like a year ago and I don't know, we couldn't get it coordinated. I kind of forget what happened, but here we are. I'm 120 some odd podcasts into this and I'm happy we finally got connected.
Well, thanks. I've known about you for a while, and I've seen your webpage, and I don't remember why we didn't connect then, but it's fine. It's great to finally be able to talk to you, Vance.
Yeah, you have a very interesting online presence. So you have the Vagabond Awake YouTube channel, which, as of this recording, has 118,000 subscribers and almost 1,000 videos. So you've clearly hit a chord with your audience. And I'd love for you to just start off by summarizing what your YouTube channel is all about, because I'm sure a lot of people have maybe even seen it and they might be listening to this and they just need to connect the dots.
Yeah. So, kind of maybe the story. So I was working as a consultant on my laptop, and I had broken the chains of normal, and I was traveling around the world, but I didn't really want to work for someone else. And then the the uh, the contract I had expired, I guess you'd say, and they closed down that part of the company that I was consulting for. And I thought, I just can't do this anymore. I cannot just live a normal work life. And my whole life, I'd wanted to travel the world. That part of it I'd figured out, but what I hadn't figured out was how to get what people call a passive income, um, or to have my to be my own boss. Maybe is a better way to put it. And so I thought, okay, this is it. I'm going to do it. And I stuck aside, I think it was about 40,000 US. And I said, I'm going to live as cheaply as possible. And I'm going to slow travel the world. And I'm going to write reports about where I was and what rents were in restaurants. And I'm going to do these videos and I'm going to do ebooks. And so I got after it. And it took a really long time. It really almost ran that 40,000 dry. So my goal was to make enough money to be able to pay for really cheap travel. So there's two aspects to it. One is you have to drive your cost. This is what I was thinking at the time, I should say. I had to drive my cost of living down so that the 40 could last as long as possible, because I really didn't think my channel would blow up or my business would blow up like some people, very few people that happens to. So I was driving my costs down as low as I could. And at the same time, I was creating a lot of content. As you mentioned, that I'm near 1,000 videos now, but I had really no audience at all. And so the idea was at first to do like affiliate marketing where I put links to, whatever booking and products and all that. And people, they'd watch a video, come to the web page and maybe buy something or rent a room or
Hmm.
whatever. And, but that, I never really made any money in the affiliate business. And then one day I was writing, one day I was reading about different ways to make money online, and I read about this concept of a membership. And so what I started to do is making these reports and put them behind a firewall, where people could join a membership. And I started out with a really low price, and it was after about, I guess it was about, um, let's see, maybe I don't know. I'll just throw a number out. I don't remember exactly, but it was around 2 years, and that 40 was, it was shrinking. And I put up this. I started putting up reports as fast as I could of all the places I traveled to, slow travel to, and I offered this membership. And I finally started making money. And about the same time, the lockdown happened, and we were stuck in the Philippines, and we were just stuck in our little two-bedroom apartment in Dumaguete in the Philippines. I was there with my girlfriend Chung, who I'd met in Malaysia a few years before that, and we just started putting out videos. I think it was maybe 5 days a week about whatever topic we could think of that was relevant to slow traveling or retiring cheap or making money
Mhm.
online, whatever topics were interesting. And it was just about when I was running out of money. And now I had more money. That was just, I set 40 aside and said, this is, I'm going to try to be my own boss and create an income from it. And if I run out of this money, then I'll get a job. I'll go back to be a normal consultant or whatever. And luckily, the money just started trickling in. And before that 40 ran out, we were making enough to just pay our low cost of living. And it's just
Got it.
gone up from there. And so,
So, what are the
um,
main income streams now? You have a private membership group, and it seems from your website that you sell a lot of ebooks.
yeah, I don't really sell ebooks. I just have a membership.
Okay.
Well, my only two income streams are from YouTube. I get paid, for views, like most people,
Hmm.
and also the membership. And I think it was around, maybe it was around early 20, middle 2020, finally the two added up together. I don't have numbers in front of me, but it was finally enough to pay what our living costs were. And then like a year later, it was almost double of what our living costs. And we were living pretty cheap, like under $1,500, sometimes only 1,000 a month. And so it
Mm,
wasn't like a lot of money, but it was a big deal for me because it meant I was free. Once you have an income that matches your expenses, that's when you're really free and you don't work for anybody else. You're just your own boss, and that's when it happened. And it's grown a little, continued to grow slowly, and now it's doing quite well. So
okay. Yeah, because I saw these ebooks on your website that I guess maybe are included in the membership.
yeah, that's right. So the membership, there's, I think there's around 230 ebooks, and I think
Wow.
about
Wow.
maybe 100, and not, that's now, right? This is, what is it? It's like 4 or 5 years later, but and so the ebooks are included, and then I have two courses also. One course is about how to retire cheap overseas, which basically explains. There's so many ideas in the ebooks that you can kind of get lost. I got an email from somebody once, and they said, "Dan, you have so many ebooks here. I don't know which one to read first. They're all great, but I'm trying to organize doing what you do, and I really need like a map into it." And I thought, "Oh my God, he's so right." And so that's why I created the course, how to retire overseas, and then also someone asked me once, "Hey, I need to make money on how do I do it?" And so
Hmm.
I'd taken a bunch of courses. I'd even tried to sell physical products on that. I all tried all sorts of things over about an 8-year period and spent thousands of dollars on courses, and nothing worked for me until I finally put together my
Memberships.
membership and my how
Okay. Okay.
and so they
Let,
can either get
let's
a
let's
they
jump
can
jump a little bit because I'm sure people are like, okay, I don't even know who this guy is that does the membership. So let's talk a little bit more about just like the themes that you talk about. One thing I noticed that was really interesting about your YouTube channel is, and I say this with all goodwill, is that your thumbnails are horrible. And so it's not, or maybe they're good in like a weird way, but they're extremely basic. And so people are coming definitely not for the thumbnails, so they're resonating in a different way. So I thought that was funny, and you have been doing it for a while, right? Like a couple of years. So I think you were one of the earliest accounts YouTube accounts that was really talking about how to retire early in different cities around the world. And you really went to a lot of different places or talked about a lot of different places, specifically in Southeast Asia, where in one video, like you've probably talked about how to retire early in dozens, if not hundreds, of different cities, like small cities for which there's basically no other video for. It's like retire early, Subic Bay, Philippines. Retire early, Angeles City, Philippines.
Yeah.
Um, you know what I mean? All the retire early, Coron, Palawan, Philippines. And then you've done that for Malaysia. You've done that for all these different places. And I think and so that's people like this type of content.
People like what?
People like this type of content. They like the idea of visualizing what life would be like in a different place and retiring early. And people also like the comparisons, I think, where when you compare one place to another. I noticed some of your ebooks were like comparing one country compared to another. And I think people enjoy the comparison stuff as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there must be like 20 countries now where I've done where we've lived, and not just I don't just write about places. We actually don't write about anywhere we haven't been. So all of those reports you're referring to are us with our feet on the ground, and we not only have information like where we ate and where we lived and what tours we went on and everything in the reports. But we also have videos in the reports that show what our apartment looked like and what the food looked like for $1.50 or $2.50 or whatever it is. You know,
Hmm.
what did we rent a scooter? Did we ride public transportation? I mean, it's the videos and the so people can actually see. And like I get your interesting comment about the thumbnails. It's funny. I was just starting to learn more about thumbnails and trying to make them look prettier, and I noticed some of my views started to fall off, and I started to realize, well, maybe all these slick um, thumbnails that people are using says like, oh, well, I'm a marketer, but I don't really think of myself as a marketer. So I started going back to some of my funky old, just basically like either a yellow, half of the thumbnail is yellow with red print, or half of the thumbnail
It's like your
is red.
signature at this point.
Yeah, and so and I think what it is that when people they sort of think of me as just sort of this funky, different thing, and when they can identify, when they see the thumbnail, you know, oh, that's one of his, and they'll click on it and watch it. But when I try to upgrade my thumbnails, it's like I don't get the views. It's I think there's sort of oh, he's an old guy, he doesn't know what he's doing, but his information's good. You
It's
know what
like
I mean?
old guy
And
thumbnail.
I think that's kind of what my audience is. So let's go watch that old guy. He's not he's you know his thumbnails suck and his titles are stupid, but he shows us what the place looks like. So that I think is what is
Yeah,
helps.
guys, the red and yellow thumbnails. This is the guy. This is the red and yellow thumbnail guy.
With a beautiful beach and a beautiful girl. So
Yeah, you're also known for that. But so Dan, and if I may ask, how old are you now?
just turned 63 a few months ago.
Turned 63. And so when did you make the leap, escape the United States? What age?
Well, oh, I left the U.S. in 2007. I think it was January, so I would have been 46.
Wow.
Uh, and that's when I became, I don't know, you could call me Grandpa Digital Nomad if you want. Um, that's when I was just working on my laptop and traveling.
That's amazing. That's very early.
Yeah, it was early. In fact, I had left the U.S. before I even read the 4 Hour Work Week um, by what's his name? I don't know why I can't remember
Tim
his name right
Ferriss.
now. Yeah, Tim Ferriss. Right.
Speaking of Tim Ferriss, like who were some of your biggest influences along the way?
When I was a boy, I was I wasn't like a rough kid, but I was not a rule follower. My buddies and I, we were basically in high school. I think by my sophomore year, we were we were slinging the weed in my high school, and so I was
Uh-oh.
never really. I was always kind of on the edge of society in that way, but and I never really wanted a job. Um, I wanted to work for myself and to just sort of live by my own ethos. Um, and so that just sort of carried through my life. I did, I've done a lot of traditional stuff along the way too. Got married, married a woman with a couple of kids that lasted about, uh, I guess, 15 years or something like that. But I was divorced by 40 and traveling by 46.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And have you
And so,
met many other influencers along the way and other people in this space? Like,
I,
have you ever
yeah,
gone to like the Dynamite Circle out in Asia, or I have no idea. Just who have maybe you met along the way in your expat life?
I guess that's another thing about me. I'm not really. I don't. Woody Allen used to say I wouldn't want to join any club that would have me as a member. I'm not really a person who knows other people that are in the business, and I try not to watch other people's YouTube channels too much or that kind of stuff. I just sort of want it to be my flavor. But in terms of influences, I mean, really old ones. I was mentioning that um, I was in high school. I was kind of going down the wrong word. My mom gave me a copy of a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and
Hmm.
that got me to realizing that I didn't have to be illegal. At least I could be my own boss and not, worry about the police. And so I started buying cars and fixing them up and selling them when I was in high school. And so it went from Napoleon Hill, and then what's the Walk on Fire guy? Tony Robbins. I read his stuff when I was in my 20s. And then trying to think who else. More recently, I'm more of a Buddhist kind of philosophy person. I follow a guy named Moji who's from Jamaica. He's on YouTube, and he talks
Hmm.
about present moment awareness, which is Eckhart Tolle and Moji and that kind of stuff. Um, I'm not really money motivated, honestly. I mean, I'm already making more than I need. I don't have any delusions of grandeur about making a lot of money. I just want to live my life my way, and along the way, I just share what I'm doing, and if people are interested, they can check it out. I'm very happy to be outside the United States now, though. I really don't even like to visit anymore. It's just crazy land there, in my opinion. So.
Do you miss the United States? How often do you go back?
I probably go back maybe a week or two, maybe sometimes every year, sometimes every other year. If somebody's getting married or somebody's sick or whatever, I'll go back. But overall, I just don't really feel that comfortable there anymore. It seemed to me it's just like malls and freeways and I don't know. I like places where walkable areas in funky old cities, whether it's in Mexico or South America or Southeast Asia or Eastern Europe. And I think I'm one of those people that just likes change. And so I've never really like I put out a listing of the top places to retire cheap around the world every year. I do the top 15,
Hmm.
and those are like the places I would move right now if I retire from 1 through 15. But I'm really not to that point yet in my life where I want to settle down. I do what's called slow travel, where you just hang out in a country or a city for a month or two. And then you read about other places and go another place. And for example, I'll hang out in one continent maybe for a year or something, and I don't fly back anywhere. I'm always moving forward, buying one-way tickets and that kind of thing. I don't, and so I'm a little bit different. I'm kind of quirky in different ways, but it's I just don't like. I like change. I like chaos, and I like learning new things all the time. That's one thing nice about the internet. There's always something going on you have to read about or fix with your web page or and different algorithms on SEO for Google and all this kind of stuff. And I'm no expert, but I'll just learn enough to get by as I go, how to solve problems and stuff.
Wow, living the vagabond life.
Yeah, for sure. So
I think that's a very good quip about the USA just being malls and freeways. Like, I think that's good.
yeah, I remember like I went to visit some friends and they were in LA. They were from back east. I lived I've lived on both coasts, and when I was in town, I went to visit them, and they're like, "Hey, we're going to go to this. We're going to go to dinner." I was like, "Great, let's go, man." So we hop in. One of them had a rental car. We hop in his rental car. We go to dinner. Nice food. And he's like, "Hey, there's this party on the other side of town. We're going to go." We're in the car for like an hour and a half going to a party, and then we're at this party for like an hour, and then he says, "Hey, there's this other party over or a nightclub we have to go to." And we get back in the car. We're in the car for like an hour or something. It's like I just don't get it. That's not my thing. I prefer like public transportation. I take like taking a grab card, riding a bicycle, walking, but figuring out like car payments and insurance and where are you going to park your car and
Hmm.
boy, my car's better than your car, all that kind of stuff. I just don't get it. I rather just I'd rather put, if you will, spend my money on learning about the world, like why is this culture different? What's its best food? Why are the people like this? How they're they're wearing these funny clothes or they're eating this weird food. How did that start? I like learning about people and culture and noticing differences and anything that I can't figure out, I'll think about for a while and try to figure out.
This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you by Language Blend, the new best way to learn Spanish. Language Blend focuses on what you actually need to live and get by abroad with daily one-on-one lessons, a dedicated texting partner. It's like living in a Spanish-speaking country without ever leaving home. Go to languageblend.com for more information. And
What
do you
is
not
it?
find it exhausting, like the every 1 month move, every 2 month move? Like, walk us through what that looks like. Because even for me, it's exhausting, and I'm half your age, and I've done it. I've been doing it for years too. So don't get me wrong. I know exactly what I'm doing, and I do it. But it is
Yeah,
a bit mentally exhausting, finding the perfect Airbnb, the logistics of maybe the bus tickets or the plane tickets,
yeah,
um, all the stuff. So walk us through what this looks like for you and how you do it. Let's just say right now you're in Bangkok, right?
right.
So
Yeah,
walk us through
mi-
how what you're in Bangkok for a month or two, I guess, and then walk us through what that looks like,
okay,
for the next
so
destination.
okay, can I use Philippines for an example instead, if that's okay?
Sure, sure, sure.
Okay, so we have like 20 reports on cities um, that we've investigated, we've visited, we've written reports about that are places that you can retire. And so the first thing you might wonder is, wait a second, 20 cities in the Philippines, how would you even pick what those cities were? So what I did is I put out a video saying, hey, we're going to tour the Philippines. What are the top cities that my audience wants to know about? And I got feedback, and I think I got feedback on like 60 cities, but only 22 of them I think had two or more people that wanted to know about that. So I figured out which cities to go to based on feedback from my audience, and that's actually listening to your audience is really what has made me successful. So anyway, so then I look at the map and I go, okay, I don't want to go to the top and then back to the bottom and then back to the top. So I looked at how can I traverse this country in the shortest distance possible. And so, you start at the bottom and work your way up, or at the top and work your way down, and then you visit each city. And then I'm blessed with Chung. She's like my girlfriend Chung, who I met in Malaysia in 2016, and she started traveling the world with me in 2017. She's highly organized and she's very particular about where she stays. So once we have the set of cities, she she spends like a horrendous amount of time on each city trying to figure out where in the city she wants to be based on where it's walkable, and then what are the best like what's a good deal an Airbnb, or is there better deals on Booking. And we have whole actually I have a whole report about how to find great apartments, and we have this technique we use for that. And then so that's the apartment, and then it's like then you have to know where to get where you're buying your groceries. Is there an open air market somewhere? And we just kind of go through that. When we first get to a city, we already know where the open air market is. We know where the grocery store is, so we go shop. We buy groceries, because if you eat out every night, it's not good. every day, I should say. If you eat every meal out, it's not really good for you. It's not as healthy for you as doing some cooking at home. And so we'll often make like a salad, like a salad with everything in it. I mean, just really healthy, like eating beans and sometimes sunflower seeds and onions and just all kinds of really spicy dressing. And so we'll eat really healthy the first few days while we learn more about the city, and then we'll start venturing out and finding like what restaurants we want to eat. You know, I'm vegetarian. She eats pretty much everything. She loves street food. I'll eat it too if I'm vegetarian. So we just have this whole routine we go through. We learn about a city and what are the cool neighborhoods, and even we go out and check out the nightlife. We go out at night and walk around and do videos about like if you know what are you looking for? Are you looking to dance, or do you like acoustic music, or and so we'll show people where to go. So it's just kind of I don't know. I guess it doesn't really feel like work. I know it sounds like work, but it doesn't really feel like it. I think it's some kind of thing that I have where I just really like. I get excited. Well, like when once maybe I've been in the apartment the first couple days and we're figuring out everything, and then when my feet hit the ground, I'm really excited when I go to a new place. I want to kind of feel what the city's like and know like does it feel safe, and is it interesting? Is it like a charming city, or is it it's I just really like that whole thing of discovering a new city. And for me, around the second or the third week, I'm like, okay, that's it. I got to go, And then it's like, where are we gonna go next? And so it's kind of I don't know. Not many people are like me. I can tell you that. And also, I have a lot of energy. I don't know why I have so much energy, but like
Energy's
Cheng's,
good.
she's
So
always
you
saying to
basically
me,
just
you,
have your girlfriend coordinate a lot of the logistics, and you're basically just happy with whatever she chooses.
well, the way I look at it is, I'm often writing a report about where we were last, and she's researching where we're going to eat tonight or tomorrow and where we're going to go next. So I'm kind of writing about the past for our reports
Hmm.
and putting together videos about the past, and she's kind of doing the future. It's kind of how it's turned out. And she's very particular about where she's willing to live, and then we're also particular about how much we're willing to spend, and so that the intersection of those two things it's hard sometimes to find something good, especially when prices have been going up, post COVID and everything. And so sometimes we end up going to a city and we just book for a few days, and then we put our feet on the ground, and this is one of our best techniques. Once we find the neighborhood we want, then we're like walking around looking for signs, like rental signs or whatever, and we start calling and asking questions. And sometimes we find our best deals that way, by with feet on the ground, because the what we've learned is that if it's online, people with money, people like you and me, if we
Hmm.
want to, we could spend money and rent these things, right?
Hmm.
And it's easy. It's just you click a button, put it in your credit card, boom, you got a place for a week or a month or whatever you need. But the landlords out there that have the good prices and sometimes the better, more interesting things, they don't know how to whatever join Airbnb, or they don't if they're not online, those are going to be better deals, and they're not as technology driven and easier to negotiate with, and
Yeah, so
so
you,
you
you
can.
must know your girlfriend's strategy. Is the strategy typically to find stuff off Airbnb, and that way you're getting the better deal?
Well, we're lazy if we can be. Like if we're some places, like even now in Vietnam, you can still get a pretty good deal. That's probably
Right,
where we'll go next. But
right.
um, so if it's somewhere like that, we don't worry too much. But when you try to go to some places you're trying to go to, we don't. We like to stay, like under 25 a night, and if it's for a month, we like to stay under 20. Um, for short term. Long term, we want to go lower than that, of course. If we're going to stay
So
somewhere a
basically,
month.
per month, your budget is less than $600 a month.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, and that's for short term.
Yep,
If
makes
we're
sense.
going to go long term, if we're going to stay somewhere a couple months, then we want to be under 500, sometimes under 400, depending what city, and whether you're near a big city or you're in a small town or whatever, that kind of thing.
And you've done this a bit in Latin America. So I noticed some of your YouTube videos were Playa del Carmen, Bocas del Toro, Panama.
Yeah.
Where have you been in Latin America?
We've been to about 20 cities in Mexico, both coasts and down the middle. As you know, most of the cool colonial era cities are in the middle, like Querétaro, Guanajuato, Mexico City, Maria, Cuernavaca, all the way down to San Cristobal, almost to Guatemala. I mean, the pre-air conditioning, all the Spanish built all these beautiful cities right in the middle of Mexico, and they're high up in the mountains, so they're cool. And then Guatemala, you've got Antigua and uh, what's the lake? Lake Atitlan, and
Hmm.
then you have Costa Rica and Panama, and then Colombia. We spent time there, and then Peru, Ecuador, and before I met Cheng, I've been to Brazil and Argentina, but neither of us have been to Chile yet. But Latin America, there's probably at least I don't know, maybe 40 or 50 cities we have retired chief reports on.
Interesting. And so you were traveling Latin America with an Asian girlfriend.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell us about that. That's kind of interesting.
Um, well, she's kind of worldly. She speaks 7 languages. Not perfect, but she can hack her way through. Um, Before I met her, even, and she traveled, I think, to 8 or 10 countries before I met her. She's a runway model. She's about 6 foot tall, and she's very, very bright, and she's fun to have around. And she's a foodie, a total foodie. She loves really good food, but she doesn't like to spend a lot of money on it. And so she's very good at finding, more local kind of food, mom that grandma makes, for really cheap. And she's more into local food than like finding out what in each country, what's the food you have to eat in that country, and what's the best street food, in this city, and which cart is it, and where is it, and all that kind of stuff. She's very much a foodie, and that's what she's about. And she eats all day, which is surprising because she's super skinny. I mean, compared to most people, and um, she's we met in Malaysia in 2016 on Tinder, and we went out and just had a blast and just hung out for about a year while I was traveling around Southeast Asia. I would come back and visit for a month or two here and there, and then at the end of a year, it was she sold her car and quit her job and started traveling with me, and it's I guess it's been 6 years now. She's been traveling the world with me. Um,
That's incredible.
yeah, and it's
Pretty adaptable then.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, she's definitely a slow traveler. We both have that in common where once we've been in a city, there's very few cities where once we've been there 2 or 3 weeks, we're like, oh, I want to stay longer. Very few. I mean, those are the ones that end up in our, top five each year. Um, and But mostly we like moving forward and exploring, and we're excited about learning about new places all the time. And that's why I think we're kind of natural slow travelers.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I should have doubled down on this before, but do you get tired with like the logistics of getting from place to place? Like even if your girlfriend books the Airbnb, you don't have to think about it. It's already done. You're editing videos, she's booking the Airbnb, right? Isn't it
Yeah.
still tough like packing up the suitcase, hopping on a bus, maybe getting to the bus terminal, hopping on another bus, or going to the airport, hopping on a flight. Maybe you're in the middle of nowhere, Philippines, and it's like a small regional aircraft or something, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think that's what tires people out the most. A lot of times, it's just the moving around and the yeah, like that aspect of traveling.
Yeah. It's funny with the way you describe it. I kind of, I, I think it might be because of my, so, so the, I think it's my Buddhism nature. I'm focused on whatever's happening in this moment, would rather than what I rather have happening. I'm not sure how to, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's I'm if I'm present. So the times in my life where I've been unhappy, it's because there's something in my life that I want it to be different. Whether it's I want more money, or I want, maybe I'm single and I want a girlfriend, or I'm unemployed and I want a job. Or I look back to like high school, a girlfriend I really was into dumped me or something, and now I'm single, and you know, um, and what I think what present moment awareness gives me is being where I am at this moment, instead of wondering what it would have been like if it were different. Um, and it's so true for me so much of the time now, that I don't really like when I'm pushing a suitcase across whatever, an airport or a bus station, and I'm going towards a bus I'm getting on. I'm really looking at the suitcase and the distance between the bus, and then I'm putting the suitcase on the bus, and then I'm going and getting in the bus, and I'm watching. I'm sort of like absorbing everything going on around me at all times. I'm really not thinking about, oh, this is hot and I'm working and I wish I was already there, and why doesn't the air conditioning work, or what. I'm really not involved in my I'm not that interested in what my mind's thinking at any given moment in time. And I
Got
think
it.
that's because I've been a Buddhist for so long. I'm more focused on each moment, what's actually happening, rather than what I wish was happening.
Okay. Yeah, that's good advice. I mean, I think we're so focused on opportunity cost, and when I think about a travel day, I think about how I just lost a full day of working. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Thinking is painful, man. Do as little of that as possible. I know it sounds insane, um, but if you check out Buddhism, maybe that I
yeah,
always
the answer was
recommend that.
Buddhism.
It doesn't have to be Buddhism, by the way. You can be a Christian, or whatever, Hindu, a Buddhist, whatever. If you can get into the present moment in your life, that's the difference. It's not about the right God or the right
Hmm.
belief, or what. It's more about just being present.
And so you don't have an empty bed anywhere in the world, is my understanding. You don't really have a home base, or you don't maintain any type of full time lease. It's awesome. It's inspiring to hear that someone in their 60s is still just month to month Airbnbs, crushing it, all that.
Yeah, I
But
do.
so,
I do have I do have a place in the U.S., but it's handled by a property manager who's rented out. So,
uh huh.
and I haven't lived there since I left the U.S. in 2007. So
Wow.
I don't go back. There's no only time I go to the U.S. is to visit family, or a friend's wedding or something like that, and then I'm on their couch or in their spare bedroom, or once in a while I'll rent a room or whatever. But I really don't go to the U.S. to travel or explore. Maybe someday I will. I'll do the van life, or get an RV or something, go to all the national parks or something. But right now I'm focused on being outside the U.S. I really enjoy the world, and seeing how the crazy different ways people live, and what they eat, and what they believe, and trying to figure out. Uh, the whole world is so, in some ways, it gets more homogenized over time. It's getting more
Right.
internationalized, if you will. But there's also just some basic differences, and and you'd think that one's better or whatever, but when you're like normal everyday life around the world, it's pretty much the same. People are worried about their family, and they're worried about their job, and getting to work in the morning, or getting to school, or food, or this. The world's pretty much the same, and it's fascinating to watch people that have different belief systems and different ideas of what the world's about, that are kind of all going through the same motions, but in just slightly different ways. And it's fun to watch all that, and from my perspective, and see how we're all kind of alike all over the world.
Wow.
And the other thing that cracks me up is when I was in the U.S., I always thought, I grew up in the U.S. I'm a U.S. citizen. We're the best country in the world. This kind of stuff, and the U.S. has a lot of great stuff about it. It's it's created a lot of the greatest companies over the last few decades and even before. It's done a lot of great things, but um, but it's not really that much different than a lot of other places, other than how everything's so spread out and you need a car um, and it's big on malls and stuff. Um, but I don't know, it's the idea that it's the greatest country in the world. I think is something you kind of have to decide on your own rather than
Hmm.
just buy it because it was in the movies you grew up and watched. You kind of have to get out
Got it.
and really see the
So
world and
tourist
move back.
visas, 30 to 90 days. Visa runs. You've been doing that for 15 some odd years. Um,
Yeah,
do you have
exactly.
like an address in Asia or any kind of like aspects of a base, like bank accounts in Asia, address? Trying to think what else. Or is your whole financial center of life still in the U.S. and you get paid to the U.S. and then you just still take money out on the ATM card, or how do you manage things financially?
Yeah, so that's a great question because I'm totally U.S. centric in the financial world. I only have banks in the U.S. I only have U.S. credit cards and American Express. Um, I've never opened a foreign account anywhere in the world. Um, and when I need money, I just go to an ATM. You probably know about Charles Schwab. You get your fees rebated, and so I have a Charles Schwab ATM card, and so it doesn't really cost me much more to pull money out of an ATM in whatever currency around the world I'm in. And that's it. I don't really have a base anywhere. I don't own any property outside of the U.S. I don't have any bank accounts. I just sort of wander around the world and enjoy my time. But the the money that YouTube pays me comes through my U.S. account. The money that the memberships create, those come through my U.S. account, and it's presently making more than we need to travel, and so I just pull money out when we need it, and we go wherever. Honestly, we go to places. I've been to 67 countries so far, but we go to places that our audience want to know about. Like we're going to be going to Vietnam for a couple months because Chung's family has she's Malaysian, but they're Chinese descendants, and
Hmm.
so we'll be there for Chinese New Year's with her family. But then we're probably going to head to Eastern Europe and slowly move up from Turkey north. And then when it starts getting cold around next year about this time, then we'll head over to South America. We want to hit more of South America. We have hit Chile and a couple other spots, and so we're picking those spots because these are places that our audience, that our subscribers, they want to know, well, how much is the rent, how much is an Italian dish of fettuccine alfredo, how much is a if you go to a family restaurant in an open air market, how much is a local dish, and how much are the buses, and is Grab there, and all that stuff that we put in our reports, and they'll find out, and it saves them time and energy when they're deciding where they want to retire.
How do you think things are going to look 5 years in the future for you?
That's a good question. So far my energy's been really high. I haven't really had any episodes physically. My dad lived till 78, so it looks like, and probably only the last 5 years, were a little harder for him to get around, and so maybe that would, so that would put him at 73. So I have at least a decade more of doing this potentially, but I figure somewhere in the next 5 to 10 years, I'm probably going to pick a base station outside the U.S. and get a place, maybe buy a little piece of land with a house on it or something, and then spend maybe half the year in a base station somewhere in the world, and then the other half the year traveling. Maybe do that for another 5, and then probably, if I'm starting to get tired, maybe then chill out in one place and only travel a few months of the year. That's kind of how I see it transforming over time, going from all travel 100% of the time, which is now, to eventually, maybe 90% of the time hanging out in one or two places around the world.
And where are you leaning towards?
Well, every year I do my top 15 places to retire cheap in the
Yeah, I was gonna
entire
ask you about
world.
that. What's the sorry to interrupt. What's the hit us with the top 15?
Oh, I probably could. I would have to open the report to remember. My memory's not that good now, but I can tell you what number one was. We were in Ubud in Bali, Indonesia, which I've probably been to 10 times before. We were there over, I think it was over Christmas, now almost a year ago, and we found this cute little cottage. Have you been to Bali before?
No.
Well, okay, Ubud's like up in the mountains a little bit. It's not like right on the beach, so it's a little cooler than different parts of Bali, and it's not. I don't know how to say it. It's not quite as touristy. It has more of a local feel to it,
Mhm.
even though it's also a tourist spot. And but it has these walkable streets. The no cars are on them, but you can just put like a motorcycle down them and people walking. But they have restaurants and coffee shops and like bars with views. It's just a really charming walkable area. And we were walking down one of those streets in Ubud, and we saw like a little alley. We walk up this alley, beautiful little alley with greenery and stuff. And we were in one of these glorious Balinesian like landscape, and it was a little family owned I don't know compound I would call it that had like 6 or 8 um, cabins or not cabins or like but anyway, it was super green. There was a river running along one side of it, and we rented a place there. I don't remember the exact amount, but it was like around $300, including utilities. And then we started eating in all the restaurants within like a 2 block radius. And we were eating these meals. I'm vegetarian, Chung's non-veg, but we were eating all these great meals for like between $2 and $4, and just really delicious food. And it was just so reasonable. It was so beautiful, and it has all those rice patties and stuff around the city. So just amazing landscape and reasonable cost of living, and so that hit number one for the 2023 report. And then other places are. I don't want to mess it up, but if you Google Vagabond Buddha top 15 places for 2023. You'll see them linked, but it's places like Dumaguete in the Philippines, Querétaro in Mexico, um, uh, Antigua and Guatemala. I mean, just various places around the world we really love are in the top 15.
Hey guys, quick interruption to tell you about Bitrefill. Bitrefill is the best way to convert your crypto into gift card balances. These are gift cards that you can spend at hotels.com, Airbnb, Nike, and many more. You may remember Joel Valenzuela, previous podcast guest. He's been living on crypto exclusively since 2015, and he's a big consumer of Bitrefill. And so I asked Joel, I said, what do you like most about Bitrefill? He said that he likes the instant delivery, the precise amount so that you don't have to juggle a lot of gift cards, and he loves the global selection. Nobody else has this much selection of gift cards, over 10,000 gift card options across hundreds of countries. Go to bitrefill.com to sign up, and you can also use the code MyLatinLife for 10% back off your first purchase. Go to bitrefill.com for more information.
Okay, so some LATAM spots make the list. It's not all
Oh yeah,
Southeast Asia.
oh yeah, we love that. So we love Latin America. It's great.
It's a far
I grew up
flight. I'm
in
surprised you do it because a lot of the it's probably tough to leave Asia where things are admittedly a little bit cheaper, admittedly a little bit safer, and be like, you know what, we're going to take a long ass expensive flight to Latin America and go check things out there. So kudos to you for
well,
that.
yeah. The key though is once we go somewhere, like when we go to Mexico, it's at least 6 months because that's what they're giving us, and then so we'll try. So we might do like for those 6 months, we might do 8 cities or
Hmm.
6 or 8 cities, and then we'll pop down to Guatemala and hit a couple cities, and then maybe go to Panama, hit a couple. So we once we fly, once we pay 1,000, or remember these are one ways, right? So once we
Right.
pay 1,000 or 1,500 for a flight, and we get to a part of the world, we really hang out in that area until we've seen everything we want to see. So if you amortize that over a year, suddenly your $1,000 ticket is under $100 a month for
Yeah, for
travel,
sure. Did you
right?
find
And so
Latin
that's
America to be more expensive? Like, did you find yourself kind of cursing under your breath, especially if you don't? I know you try to live like a local, but you probably don't speak Spanish very much. Were you know how would you compare the cost of living, and were you okay with that trade off?
um, so so it's true that some parts of Latin America cost more than some parts of Southeast Asia. That's definitely true. But it's also true that as you move away from larger cities in Latin America into smaller cities, the cost of living can go down quite a bit. Or if you're in a larger city, if you move further out,
Yep.
it can be cheaper. And also, it's about like where you're eating. If you're going to open air markets, like when we were in Oaxaca, Mexico, we found these flour tacos or quesadillas. I don't remember. They're actually flour is one of the. I don't mean flour like the white stuff, but the kind that bees get honey from or whatever, a flower,
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and they were like $1, and they're just and they had that Oaxacan cheese and the salsas and stuff. We find that if we eat in like open air markets and not go to, fancy restaurants, it's not you can get the prices down pretty good in Latin America. I mean, it's okay once a week, maybe to go out for date night and you can go to a place where you're gonna have to pay, $6, $8 for a meal. But mostly, if you pick stuff up at open air markets, fruits and vegetables, and cook at home a lot, and then eat in some of the like little family places, sometimes it's not that expensive. So depending where you are, of course, in Latin America.
Hmm. And what about renting the place in Latin America? Are you doing Airbnb? Did you find that more expensive? Did you have any good hacks for that?
I that okay. So the same hack works all over the world. Like when we were in uh, Puerto Morelos in Mexico. Now prices are, I don't know what they are now. We haven't been there in about a year and a half, I think. But um, so we would go not to the beachfront area, but that little village behind it,
Yeah,
and we would
on the other
just
side of
walk
the
around
highway.
the
Yeah.
yeah the other side of the highway, and we would walk around neighborhoods, and like we found this cute little apartments that were, I think, I don't remember how much they were, but it was quite reasonable. I think like 600 a month, including utilities. And it was like a two-bedroom apartment with AC, and it had like monkeys in the trees around. And so the thing is, you have to be willing to spend a little more energy and in order to find the better deals. And that's fine. If you're on a tight budget, time isn't money. You can spend a little more time, or time is money, I guess, and find a cheaper rent. But if you're just going Airbnb and you're just going for a week or two, it's going to be hard to find a good deal. Sometimes on Airbnb you can find a good deal by going a month, but not as good as if you put your feet on the ground and start making offers.
Could you
So
see
that's what we
yourself
do.
retiring in Latin America or Europe, or do you think you'll ultimately uh, end up staying in Southeast Asia?
Um, it's going to be whatever country wins the race that year. Like this year it would have been Uber in Bali, because that guy would have rented that place to us. If I wanted a 2 year lease, he would have signed it. He would have signed a 2 year lease.
That's promising that Ubud's not totally overrun with, I don't know,
Well, the thing,
gentrification.
no, it is. I mean, you can go there and you can spend $1,000 a month if you want to. And that people say, "Oh, you can't rent for that $300. You can't pay that." If you go watch my Uber video, you'll see comments like that. And you're like, "Well,
Hmm.
where'd you stay?" "Oh, we were down on the beach." And well, this is Ubud. It's not on the beach. It's not on the internet. You had to knock some doors. It's not new furniture. It's old school Balinese. I think it has a lot of character. And so, but they're like, "Oh, we want wall to ceiling glass, and we want ceramic." We want ceramic floors and countertops, and we want white curtains. And no, that's not what you're getting. If you want to spend 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 a month, oh no, we need 3 bedrooms. We want a view of the ocean. That's not how we live. We live simple, and we live local. So there is a. The funny thing about cost of living is that people forget that there's people that are living in every one of these countries.
Yep.
They're locals, and they're not paying $1,000 a month in rent. There's no
Exactly.
way in hell they could afford that. They're living in more local kind of accommodations, and they're not going to the $10 entree restaurants. Where are they eating? So if you start and at first you might be like, oh, I really like being in that really nice place. But if you think about it, oh, am I going to wait 30 years to retire so that I'm going to work my life to the bone so that I can have these curtains and this kind of floor? Or do I want to enjoy the next 30 years because I'm willing to live more like a local? And it's a choice you have to make. But I think I've decided what that choice is for me. I just like my lifestyle, and I want to maintain it, and I don't want to blow all my money to on rent and fancy cars, and that's why I can't fly. I can't, like, I have friends that are digital nomads that they fly from Europe, and now we're going down to South America. And in one year they're taking 4 or 5 of these $2,000 or $3,000 round trip flights. That's not me. If I fly somewhere, I try to spend 6 months to a year on one ticket, and then maybe some local flights that are $100 here and there. But I'm not going to burn through money like that. I'll save it when I'll group together all the places I want to see in this part of the world, and then I'll see all those places, and then next year I'll go to one of those other places and spend a year hanging out over there. So it's just kind of you adapt your behavior a little bit, think a little bit more like a local, and it's just a different story than this. Oh, you can't live there. You need at least 3,000 a month to live here or there. I just don't find that to be true. I think people are just spoiled, and not in a good way. I think
Yeah,
they're
I get a
trying.
lot of comments like that on Twitter. I'm not sure if you've seen our Twitter, but or our profile, but it's
No, I
where
haven't seen it.
actually we're very very active, and we make tweets like that where it's kind of like the synopsis of one of your YouTube videos, but in a tweet where it's like you can live in Querétaro on $1,000 a month, and then people are be like, "What? That's impossible!" Blah blah blah.
Yeah, no, it's right. I mean, I just interviewed a guy that's living in Querétaro on $657 a month. Now he's been living in the same place for 4 years, so maybe his rent would be higher if he tried to rent it today. But that's what his cost of living is, and people they just can't get it. Like, oh no way, I'm spending more than that on alcohol. I believe them too. You know, I I think this idea that there's that there's only one way to live, and that if you're not living my way, you're not living. I don't I don't buy that. I think we all have to decide what we think is important and live whatever we want. It's not always about money. I mean, if you're out partying every night and drinking every night and burning the candle at both ends, maybe it's not that fun. You kind of need to. You're not really. The way I think of it is, people try to bring their old life with them to a new country, right? They want, like, hey man, let's go out every weekend. Let's find the nightclub. Hey, they're playing the wrong electronic music here. It's not as good as the electronic music in Toronto. Wait a second. Why don't you wander around a little bit and listen for some folk music, or what are the local people doing? You're in another country. Why don't you go see what they're up to? That's what's interesting about travel. Not trying to recreate your old life in a new place. And I think when I've talked to people that are spending, burning money like that, it's because they're everywhere they go. It's trying to recreate something they had in their old life. They're not trying to figure out what's going on in this new part of the world. They're just trying to recreate. They're trying to do, whatever Querétaro. They're trying to recreate Toronto in Querétaro, so they want to know all the cool spots to go and where they can hear the same kind of music, eat the same kind of food, and they would live in a house that looks the same as they're in Toronto. I'll keep beating up Toronto here,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
um,
I know what you mean.
but they're not. Why are you traveling? Go back to Toronto. You know, find out why you're. I guess not everyone's traveling for the same reasons. For me, travel's about, I don't know. It's about learning about yourself in a new country. I'm not trying to make everyone in the new country think like you do, like you did in your old country. Maybe is a way to say it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm on my soapbox. Sorry about this.
No, I totally agree. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Now, I want you to think about some of your best travel stories. I know it's hard to do on the spot, but just make a mental note. I want to hear like one of your best travel stories or funniest travel stories. Um, and as you think about that, so the you have a YouTube video, best retire early cheap places in the world 2023, just so people can get an idea what's on the list. Um, we have Peru. We have Casamarca. I don't know where that is. Where's Casamarca?
Cajamarca.
Yeah,
Cajamarca is it's more in the north. It's not quite rainforest, but
it's in
in
Peru.
Peru, it's
Oh
yeah, it's
shit.
Peru. Yes.
Okay, cool. We have Antigua, Guatemala,
Yeah.
Lake Atitlan, Guatemala, Cuenca,
Yeah.
Ecuador, Bangkok, Thailand, Baguio City, Philippines,
Baguio. Yeah.
Baguio City, Philippines, Puerto
Yeah.
Morelos, Mexico,
Right.
LATAM coming in very dominant early, Penang, Malaysia, Porto,
Yeah.
Portugal, Sintra,
Yeah.
Portugal, which is a lovely place. Pretty expensive. I'm surprised it makes the cheap list, but I'm sure it's doable. Oaxaca, Mexico, Kuala Lumpur, Dumaguete, Philippines, Koh Samui, Thailand, and Ubud, Bali. That's the
Yeah.
big 15.
That's 2023. Yeah. Yeah. That's quite a sampling. Baguio is a mountain town in the Philippines. It's quite a high elevation, so it's very cool compared to most of the Philippines. It's also a university town, so it
Hmm.
has a bunch of interesting music and art. Like on Sundays, they close the streets down, the main street in town, like about 4 blocks of it, and all these college students and whoever wants to comes out with these with chalk, and they draw all these anime. Um, Cartoon characters on the road, and they all dress up in these clothes and stuff, and it's quite a sight. And they really surrounding the town, they have all this beautiful land that they grow fruits and vegetables. So you get some of the best, healthiest fruits and vegetables in that town for some of the cheapest prices, and it's cooler. So it's nothing like most of the Philippines, which are quite warm at sea level, and then they have the music and the nightlife because of the universities. It's really a fun town, and it's pretty reasonable, cost of living, and so it's quite a nice spot. A lot of times people think the Philippines is only um, like Mexico. People always think, oh, Mexico is just a bunch of beaches. I can't stand the heat. I can't go there. But really, some of the most beautiful places in Mexico are in the mountains, and that's the same. A place like Baguio in the Philippines
Yeah,
is really
exactly. It kind of gave me some Latin America vibes, this Baguio place, like up in the mountains. Like they got, it's like misty, you know?
yeah, yeah. And it's a former Spanish colony, like much of Latin
Uh,
America. So it has all of the Philippines have a little bit of a Spanish flavor to them. And the food, they count money uh, in Spanish language. Everything else pretty much English or the local language
what do you
Tagalog.
mean they
But
count the money in Spanish? Like unos,
um,
dos, tres?
yeah, if you go to a market and you ask, how much are the whatever, how much is the watermelon, they're going to quote you Bente or whatever. They quote
Really?
you in Spanish numbers. Yeah. Somehow the Spanish numbers remained in negotiations in markets.
That's funny. Yeah, I know they've kept a lot of words. I didn't know the numbers.
Yeah, yeah. So
I gotta put this in Google Translate right now. Tagalog, Vente, 20.
yeah, it's 20.
Okay, anyway. Yeah, do you want to hit us with like one good story?
Like a travel story. Gosh. Hey, babe, can you think of a travel story I can share? Should I share that one? we were in we were in Cartagena, and actually this is funny for the one of the. So I when Chung and I first met, she was just traveling around with me, sort of like, oh yeah, you make the arrangements where we're going to stay, what tours we're going to go on, all this stuff, and we'd heard about this Playa Blanca, which is a beach outside of Cartagena, but it's a boat ride away, and we'd heard that you could jump on this ferry, and I heard about this area where you went to catch this ferry that went over to uh, the Playa Blanca, and so I go to this area, and I didn't see any fare anywhere, so we start asking people like, "Hey, is there a place around to catch the ferry to Playa Blanca?" And some guys, "Oh, well, we'll take you there," and I'm like, "Oh, what is it going to cost?" And he quoted me, I don't I don't remember the exact amount, but I'll just guess it was like $30, the equivalent of $30. And so he has this little boat. We're like, oh, let's throw the guy a bone. So we jump in this little boat and we're going to Playa Blanca, and it takes forever, like an hour. I didn't know how far away this island was, and we finally get there, and he stops like 20 meters from the beach, and he's all, "You have to pay me." We're like, "We're gonna pay you and swim?" He goes, "No, once you pay me, I'll let you out of the boat on the land." We're like, okay. So I pull out the $30 or whatever. He goes, no, 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 it's 300. I'm like, no, it's not. So we're arguing for a few minutes, and um, finally agreed to take us to the land. Now I had all my camera equipment with me, and I have, we have all these electronics with us. We're going there to film this gorgeous beach, just outside of Cartagena. So I can't jump and swim, and I don't want to hit this guy over the head with an oar over $30 or whatever. And so finally, I just agreed to pay him. I don't remember much. We gave him like 3 or 4 times what he quoted us. Um, and he takes us in, and off we go. But after that, Chung, from then on, she's like, I'm planning the tours. I want to do it. And that's when it started, where she started taking control of all that, making sure we were going, and had it was sort of a safety issue for her when she kind of took over a lot of the planning. That was the start of it.
Hey, everybody. Hey, everybody. Quick break from the podcast to tell you about Language Blend, the best new way to learn Spanish. Language Blend was co-founded by Jake Nomada, friend of the podcast, decade of experience in Latin America. And Jake and his team, they put everything into this program that they wish they had in terms of how to level up quickly with your Spanish language skills. Because the faster that you can get conversationally fluent in Spanish, the better the experience that you're going to have in Latin America. So go to languageblend.com for more information. That was the moment
That was the moment.
you became the not the Booker guy.
Yeah, because I mean, I really should have known right exactly where to go to catch this ferry, and I was off by quite a bit, like maybe 2 kilometers. So that made the difference, and we ended up having to pay all this extra money. And but we're very blessed. We almost never have any kind of trouble. But that was even unusual for me at the time. I'd never have anything like that happen. And we knew it was kind of a con job. He threw a zero on the end after we got there.
Seriously. Moral of the story,
But
avoid Cartagena.
yeah, no, I definitely recommend Cartagena.
Oh,
Have you
there
been
you
there?
go. I haven't because everyone's told me for years and years to avoid it because all the scams and stuff.
Well, there are scams there, but it's such a beautiful place. And when you're inside that castle, it has all these. It's just so quaint. It's so beautiful inside there, and they have all these restaurants and coffee shops and nightlife, and people playing instruments in the streets, and all this great food. I don't know. I think Cartagena is a must see for Latin America. It's one of my favorite places, but it's extremely expensive. Like even a cheap place inside the castle walls is probably $100 a night. It's very
Mm-hmm.
expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to pay through the nose, but you got to go at least go for 2 3 days and see it. It's just amazing.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah, I think we covered some good ground on this episode. Really cool to catch up. And I think one of the things that impressed me most about you was a how you still have so much energy and you're doing it and you're kind of making it seem more okay for the older guys to just go and Airbnb, rent their house in the USA, don't even worry about it, and then just keep Airbnb it month to month, and it's not just for guys in their 20s.
Yeah, it really is not. I think it's been the most significant thing in my life in many ways. I mean, if you have the travel bug, if you don't know if you have the travel bug, you kind of need to go find out because it's mind blowing. I mean, once you leave the mothership and you start seeing the world, it might really just make your life so much more interesting. It has for me. And I can't imagine if I lived this life and not done this. To me, it's just so fun and so interesting and so exciting to see the world. And it's so different everywhere you go. And you learn so much not only about where you are, but yourself because of the way you react to everything. Because nothing ever goes perfect, as you were saying, and so you have to it's a way for you to grow. Travel's a way to grow because you learn about other people around the world and other cultures, and you realize, hey, wait a second, they're really kind of like me. They're not that different. um, it's a little bit different architecture, a little bit different religions here and there, but people
Hmm.
are pretty much similar all over the world. The human nature is pretty common. They care about their family and friends. Overall, most people are good. There's some clowns and characters out there, but overall, it's an amazing world, and it's just so exciting to experience it firsthand that
Hmm.
I recommend you have to do it. And maybe it's not for you. There are some people that just it's not for them. They go and they just don't feel comfortable. They don't like it. But I recommend at least trying and seeing whether or not it's a fit for you. For me, it's been the highlight of my life.
Yeah, I think, there's this understanding that time slows down when you travel. And so it kind of just makes your life longer. Like the months, the years just fly by when you're in one spot, when you're living in one city. But when you travel, time slows down and it's almost like you have multiple lifetimes.
I love that. You know what it reminds me of? You know how, like, when I was a zombie living in the US, sometimes I would get in my car and I would pull out of the driveway and I would drive to work, and just about at the end of the street, something would happen and the whole world around me would disappear. And then I would show up at my work and I would be parking my car, and I would think, what happened? Oh, I was thinking about what I had to do today, blah blah blah. But I wasn't paying attention to what was happening in my life. What I find when I travel the world is completely different. The reason I can ignore what car is next to me or what's in front of me or whether or not there's a red light or where I am on the way to my work is because it's all already figured out. When your
Yeah.
life's all already figured out, you don't have to be in it anymore.
You're not
But when
even
you start
thinking. It's like
traveling,
zombie mode.
it's zombie mode. But when you start traveling, you're walking down the street you've never walked down before. You're like noticing everything: birds and trees and restaurants, and why are they making the sidewalk this way? And what's going on over here? Oh, what's that smell? It's like you're present to everything in your life when you're traveling, and that is kind of like you get to live instead of you get to live in your life instead of live in your mind because you're in
Hmm.
zombie land. So that's kind of how I see it. It's like driving to work when you live in the U.S.
Dan, I had a question for you that's totally out of the flow of the episode, but I'm just going to be selfish and ask it. So I
Sure.
get how to get a cheap 1 month Airbnb or whatever, but I find the issue is if you're booking for less than a month, like if you want to, like some places just aren't worth a month, right? They're only worth a week or 5 days or whatever. What's your secret or your approach to getting a good deal on accommodations for a short period of time? Are you going on hotels.com? Because when you go on Airbnb, or sorry, yeah, when you go on Airbnb, it's like $45 a night if you're only doing 5 nights, right? And it ends up being like $250 or something for like 5 nights, and which, from my understanding, probably wouldn't be too palatable for you. So, do you maybe not even book anything and then just walk around the downtown and find a hotel for $20, or how do you? But like, how do you find a place when you only want to be in a city for 5 to 7 days or 2 weeks?
Okay, okay. So you're forgive me, but the premise is your problem.
Okay.
The premise is that you only want to be in a city for 5 days. We never have that premise. Now, and I'll give you one exception where we do have that premise. But because when we go to a city, we don't know how long we're going to be there. So if we want it, if we're pretty sure it's going to be for a month or less, what we do is we look for an Airbnb that has like the next 5 weeks open on it, and then we book the first like 3 days, and then and then
Negotiate.
when we get there in the land and we meet the landlord, and we assuming we do, sometimes they don't, they have the you get in yourself with just a code or something, but we get in, we check the internet, does it work, is there hot water, is the AC work, yeah, does it have pots and pans, boom, yeah, we can live here for a month. Then we text the landlord and we say, by then we've got them on WhatsApp or whatever, and we say, hey, would you if we want to stay here for the rest of this month, would you take this much in cash? And if that's still open and no one's gone and booked a weekend in the middle of it since we showed up, or in the week before, then we will make a cash offer. So that's kind of our trick. But the five, okay, now let me give you the exception to the 5 day premise. We're only going to go somewhere for 5 days. Sometimes we'll research that we want to be in a place like we were just in Dumaguete in the Philippines, and we stayed there, I think, for 3 months total. We did like a month and a half, and then we went to a nearby place for 10 days, and then we came back for another month and a half. And so, what I'm getting at is if sometimes you want to go somewhere for a month, but there's going to be two or three places around it that you can't spend a month in because they're not enough demand. Like the example I gave you, where you know my audience wanted to know about 60 places in the Philippines, and we narrowed it down to 20 places. One
Mm-hmm.
of those places might be near one of the places that we do want to go to for a month or a
Mm-hmm.
few weeks or whatever. But so we'll look on Airbnb and say, okay, let's just go there for a 4 day weekend. In that case, we may not do an Airbnb. We might do a hotel or whatever because we're only going to be there 3 4 days. We'll just look for something really cheap, and then we'll just eat out. We'll eat out more and that kind of thing, just to keep the nightly rate down. That's kind of our solution. But the idea that we're going to go somewhere for 4 or 5 days, that's a secondary to somewhere we already are. And we're often leaving an empty bed, as you call it, in the main city we're in, and we're just
Right,
going
right.
somewhere
Hit
for
a little
four
day
days.
trip or one night type of
Yeah,
thing. Yeah,
but
yeah.
one of the nice thing about not having a bed you're going back to is you're not thinking, oh, I can't stay there for a month. I'll be paying rent on two places, right?
Exactly.
But when you're not just going somewhere for 5 days and then going back, you don't have that problem. And so you don't know how long you're going. What if you get there and you like it? You might want to stay a month. You might want to stay two
Mm.
months. So
So you've
the
never done a
five
thing
day.
where you just tear through a country top to bottom, bus trip, 3 days here, 3 days there, 3 days there. It's like always kind of 1 month at a time.
No, no, no. It's like when we were. So when I first lost my contract and we were going to try to put enough content on the map so that people could find us and enough videos. When I
Mm.
first that was I was doing one YouTube video a day and one report a week. So we early on when we were traveling through Mexico, we were just staying a week in each city. And what back then, what we were able to, what we do on Airbnb is when we only wanted a week, is we would pick our top 5 places in that city, and we would offer all of them whatever we wanted to pay, and one of them usually would accept,
Mm.
or one of them would counter and ask for just a little more, and we'd take that one. Um, and so that was what we'd do. We'd pick a handful, make offers, and get an acceptance, and take the one that took our offer, or pay a little more if they counter offer.
Makes sense. So you're pretty big on contacting the hosts on Airbnb and asking for special offers?
We used to do more of that, but now we contact them because we want to make sure there's a router in the room, and now we do the other thing where we make sure there's time behind them. But once we get there, if we'd like it, we'll make them a cash offer then, and that usually works pretty well, especially if it's a place that they're offering a month. Let's say their nightly rate is $35 or whatever,
Hmm.
but they'll do a monthly for like $5.95. We'll find that if we book like 3 days or 4 days and then we show up and we offer them say 400, they might counter back 450, 475, but then they're saving money on whatever they're paying Airbnb and they're getting cash. I don't know if they're going to declare that income or what. That's not for me to worry about. But some of them will accept often. They don't usually push back for the whole amount. It's
Hmm.
rare that they do that.
And you write in the local currency. So you say like, hey, I don't even know the Asian currencies, but let's just say it's pesos. You wouldn't say USD, you would say pesos. You'd be like, hey, I need it to be
Of
400
course.
pesos a night.
Yeah. Because otherwise they're making them do conversions.
Right. And it's what's weird though is then they're like, oh, does that mean like before the fees, after the fees? Because if they do like 400 pesos before the fees, by the time Airbnb adds the fee and maybe the cleaning fee, it's like 500 pesos or more, right? So it's kind of weird.
Do you mean which case where I book a few days and then offer cash, or the case where I'm off making an offer?
Making the offer on the platform,
Oh, I see. Usually we look at the
the
what
all
it would
in.
be for the whole amount,
Yeah.
and then we just don't buy it. We use it as a reference when we go back and say
Uh,
we'll pay this, but then we'll pay you in cash, and that's um, we we pretty much have gotten. Um, it's been a while since we were doing that, but we would try to get them on WhatsApp or something, so we're not doing it on. We don't want You don't want to put on Airbnb. Oh, we'll pay you this much in cash, so you don't have to pay Airbnb. That's going to get you kicked off the platform.
yeah, yeah. You gotta be careful what you write there. Um, cool. Well, I definitely want to be respectful of your time. You've been super, super generous. Um, like I said in the very beginning, you were one of the early podcast guests that people told us we had to get because you come with that different perspective about retiring abroad, which I think is going to be a huge market in the future. It's already big, but I think you're on the right. You're in a growth market, let's just say, because I think a lot of people aren't going to be able to afford to retire in the United States going forward, with their social security and so forth. It's just so expensive there. And I think a lot of people, more and more people, are looking to retire in Latin America and in other places around the world. I'm sure you're seeing the same thing.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunately people have watched their um, investments, retirement investments, assuming they've even made enough money to save anything, they've watched what they have invested go down a little bit over the years, 2008, and other ones have just watched their stuff go crazy up. So there's different versions out there, but a good portion of the public ends up around 55, 60, and they're looking down at their savings and their potential to retire, and it's not going to go so well in the U.S. And hopefully they're seeing more than just this way I can retire. It's one way I can retire. Hopefully they're actually interested in the world. That'll make a big difference for them. The people I get comments sometimes from people like, "What's the cheapest place? It's just like the U.S." It's like, you don't really have an interest. You're just going so you can afford to retire at all. That's a tough place to be because if you don't really have an interest in the world, it's going to be hard to be outside the U.S. because it means you're used to how things are in the U.S. You haven't really tasted the forbidden fruit, so you're not going to enjoy it. You're going to want everything how it was when you were growing up, and that's the problem I think for people like that. So I think that it is true that some and many are not going to have the money and have never traveled and will leave and really enjoy it. But I would say along the way, they need to start earlier and start going out and really getting a taste of the world, what it's really like, and not just like vacations, but go to more like neighborhoods where people live and see like how do they live, what do they eat,
Hmm.
could I do this, do I like it, am I interested in it, am I fascinated in it? That's, I think, will make a difference for them. It can't just be money, in my opinion, if there's no desire really to learn about a new culture, because like you said, it can be difficult. You don't know what to order, you don't know how, in some places you don't know how to speak their language. It can be difficult, especially someone who's older age, to try to make that adjustment. And so they should find out if they have that interest, before retirement age, so that they can, so they're going in with a smile on their face instead of it's their last hope, on their face.
Wise words. Wise
Yeah,
words. Well,
yeah.
Dan, let's leave it there. You've been super generous with your time. Where would you like to direct the audience's attention? A little call to action.
Um, I guess. So, do you? Would you have like a link or something? Is that the idea?
Yeah, yeah. We'll link your YouTube channel in the show notes and link the websites. But I guess you probably want to tell people again about the membership.
Okay. So we have a membership. It's $19 a month, and we have a couple hundred reports about places around the world you can retire, and then all sorts of planning reports and ways to think about life overseas. You can just come to Vagabond Buddha and .com and hunt around and read what's there. And probably the best thing to do for somebody new who doesn't know who we are is to come to Vagabond Awake and maybe just subscribe and just watch 10 videos or hunt around at Vagabond Awake on our old videos and look for stuff that's interesting.
Hmm.
We have a uh, what is it called, the playlist. You get, like, if you're interested in Mexico, we have over 100 videos all over Mexico. If you're interested in South America, many of those places we have 30, 40, 50 videos. Same with cities and places around the world. Just go to the playlist, watch a few videos from a city you're curious about, and see if you can stand us. If you're not aggravated by what we do, if it's interesting, then just subscribe and start watching, and eventually, if you see the value there, then think about getting a membership. So,
Boom, there you have it. This has been another episode of the My Latin Life podcast. Again, my guest today, Dan from Vagabond Awake, is the YouTube channel, and vagabondbuddha.com is the website. Thanks everyone for listening.